Let's get the okay. Hello, good evening. Oh, good evening, everyone that's here. Baruch Hashem, let me open the chat and let me open up the text on my computer. Who's ready for a good class tonight? Just lower the air in here.
I'm ready for a great class.
Oh, that's the spirit. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Bruce.
I'm ready for a superior class tonight.
Lay it on thick, huh? Read the Bible, cheeseburgers. Okay, let's just make sure there's someone watching us. If you're watching on Chabad.org, watching on my personal page, please say hi so we can see you, so we can share the moment together. Okay, I haven't gotten any comments yet. Oh, here we go. Lori, Erev Tov, Prima, Shalom. Thank you for responding. Thank you for saying hi. Harold, Hertz and Label, or Label. What's Lab maybe. Hertz and Lab from Rosenberg, Oregon. How are you, Hertz and Lab? How are you, Prima? How are you, Lori? If you're watching, say hi. If you're watching on my personal page, I don't see anyone yet. Where's Kim? Was Michael's birthday today? Wow, Mazel Tov, Michael. We don't.
There's two. Sandy Birch has a birthday today.
That's right. He told me actually. So Mazel Tov to Sandy Birch. She's not watching though, but anyway, it's
And Michael.
Michael Stein. If he's not watching, we'll see a replay. Michael, happy birthday. Sandy, happy birthday. Who else had a birthday this week?
Debbie has a birthday this week.
Debbie who? Debbie Schwartz. Yeah. She's a big one. Actually, her Hebrew birthday is tomorrow. Tomorrow is her Hebrew birthday. So actually tonight. Tonight is Debbie's 40th birthday. So tonight's learning will be in the honor of all of those who have birthdays. Shalom, Rabbi Denberg. Oh, Carmen. We got Carmen on, okay? So we know someone's watching on my page. And Gail is watching. Hello, Gail. Hello, Jessica watching from Pennsylvania. Hello, Art from Michigan. My buddy Art, how are you? How are you, Gal? What does Mika mean? Make the internet kosher again, okay? The internet is as kosher as you want to use it. You can, it's like, okay, Prima, this one is live. Okay, you ready, guys? We got people watching. We got a crowd in the room. Let's make a blessing on this delicious cup of tea. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam shakol niyah b'dvaro.
Amen.
The tag is in there. There we go. Look. You ready? Okay, so tonight's class is, besides for all the birthdays, and besides for hello to my buddies Gail and to Shira. Shira, hope you're well. And to Joe. And Stephanie is watching. Baruch Hashem. Tonight's learning is in the memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. His Neshama should have an elevation. And tonight, we'll be talking about a fascinating topic. Cheeseburgers, which actually not really cheeseburgers. Meat and milk. Just cheeseburgers, I think, sounds cooler than saying meat and milk, right? Now, okay, but you don't eat cheeseburgers anymore.
Unless they're at Smash House.
Oh, at Smash House I do.
Oh, okay. At Smash House, they have cheeseburgers, so it's fake cheese, obviously.
Yes, follow your heart.
I haven't been there yet, but I'm sure. Okay, where are we going? You tell me. Is it actually I get the cheeseburger when I'm there? Okay. In honor of the class, I will soon have my first cheeseburger. I don't know if I've ever had what. First off, remember I'm being recorded. You never know someone can hear you online. Today they can take like 8 seconds of like an hour. Like the rabbi said he had a cheeseburger, right? And I'm saying
Non-dairy cheeseburger.
yeah. So in case it's not obvious, it's a non-dairy cheeseburger. Anyway, so but there's a great joke. It's a little mean, but it's a great joke about when God comes to Moses and says to Moses, well, before that even, why are we talking about meat and milk this week of all weeks? First of all, flows. Last week we had a great class on the reason for Shabbos. So today we have a great class on the reason for not mixing meat and milk. But even though the Torah says the reason why for Shabbos, and here the Torah does not give a reason, but we'll get to that soon. But why am I talking about it now this week? Because this week's Torah reading has the verse that actually God says not once, not twice, but 3 times in the Torah not to cook a kid, a goat, a baby, and we'll soon read doesn't mean a kid, it means any young animal in its mother's milk. But second, so 3 times.
In this
So
part.
this parsha is the first, yeah. That's why we're talking about it this week, and not because I'm bored. You know what I'm saying?
3 times in this parsha?
No, 3 times in the Torah.
So
3
that
times
is
in.
really important.
Yes, it's very important because there's 3 different parashas, 3 different times in the Torah on 3 different weeks where the Torah repeats the prohibition not to have meat and milk together. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. So yes, obviously it's a pretty important commandment. So the joke goes, because I wanted to start with the joke, we have to just know the verse to appreciate the joke. God comes to Moshe and says, Moses, thou shalt not eat a baby animal, a baby calf in its mother's milk. You understand? Moshe says, yeah, I think I understand. Basically, you're saying we should never, ever mix meat and milk, not have them in the same meal, don't ever have them together on the same table. God says, no. I said, don't cook a baby kid in its mother's milk. You understand? Oh, so we should have separate dishes, separate meal dishes and milk dishes. No, Moses, you're not listening. Don't cook a kid in his mother's milk. Oh, you mean you should wait 6 hours when we eat one till we eat the other? Okay, Moses, have it your way.
That's good. Okay. Oh, well.
So that's just the joke. Didn't actually go down that way. Hello, everyone that's watching.
If you're in the Tuesday class, you would
Correct.
understand
So
that it was the second step down.
So Marsh is 100% right. If you are joining our JLI class, if you're not joining yet, you can still join because next class is tomorrow night, and we can work out a deal if you need. And I was thinking about explaining this, and I decided I'm not going to. I have a lot of good stuff to share tonight without going there, but in just 30 seconds, the way God gave the Torah is that when God orally spoke to Moses, at the same time he told him what to write, he orally explained to him what he was telling him to write. Moses was not a court stenographer who was just literally, God was dictating, like the secretary. God was dictating and the secretary was transcribing. That's not what Moshe's job was. Moshe was a transmitter of the teachings and the beauty and the wisdom of Torah. And when you want to convey wisdom, you need to orally explain it, and then you give out notes to help. So the script, the written text of the Torah is like the notes of the class, so to say. You get the bullet points of the class. And on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, God was teaching Moshe all the laws of the Torah. So you'll have to believe me now. And if you want to argue with it and you see how the tradition goes down, you can come to class tomorrow. Send me an email, rabbi@mychabadcenter.org. I'll send you the video of the class. I'm glad to send it to you. Rabbi@mychabadcenter.org. I'll send you the videos. The fact is, when God told Moshe these words that are in the Torah, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk, he explained to him that this means a prohibition not only of cooking meat and milk together, but even of eating milk and meat together, or even getting benefit from meat and milk together. Let's go straight into the actual text. Getting benefit, pleasure, selling it, making money off of it, cooking it for somebody else, etc. So what I want to focus on today is not how do we know that, not the whole story of rabbinic interpretations and chicken. And I really, when I was first thinking about it, that was actually my first thought, because that was in my head from what I'm teaching last week's JLI and tomorrow night's class, which I prepared. So when I was thinking over the weekend, that was my first thought. But we're going to get into the reason why, the spiritual meaning, the spiritual explanation and deeper understanding. Why does God not want us to cook meat and milk together? Okay? It's going to be a spiritual class, a beautiful class, but let's just start at the beginning, which is the verse in this week's Torah reading that tells us not to cook them together. It is, by the way, at the end of a very long section of logical laws. And that's also another idea that we're not going to go into, how the law of kosher, which is not logical, falls into a parsha which is called Mishpatim. Maybe on Shabbos, if you ask me on Shabbos, we could talk about it. Let me stop. I just want to point out the irony, and I'm not going to explain it to you, but for those that are watching, those that want to, I'll give you a seed for further thought. What's the name of this week's Torah reading? Mishpatim, which is rational laws. And what's the law of kosher? The ultimate example of a chok, a non-rational law that we do just because God said. So how does a chok fall into the parsha called Mishpatim? If you remember on Saturday, you can ask me and we can talk about it. But for now, let's stay focused on the spiritual meaning of this mitzvah. What?
I said I put a reminder on my phone, but I won't be able to.
We'll help you on Shabbos. Okay, excellent. Good. You'll have to use your old-fashioned brain like they did like many years ago, you know. Okay. Chapter 23, my friends, verse 19. The verse starts off by talking about the choicest of the first fruits of your soil that you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. You all know what Bikurim is, right? The first fruits. Whatever. If you don't know, one day we'll talk about it. And then the verse says, Lo sivashel gedi b'chalev imo. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Now, first of all, Rashi tells us that when it says do not cook a kid, the word kid doesn't mean a child, obviously. You know, my daughter was sitting on my lap as I was preparing my class now at home, and I like when I was showing them learning, like, okay, I moved away. We're cooking kid, you know, like she's a little young to understand that a kid could be a goat. I don't want to like scare her. They were thinking about a class of cooking kids. But so when the word kid in Hebrew, gedi in Hebrew, this little dad jokes, by the way, you know, cooking a kid. So the word gedi could mean a goat, a baby goat. It can also mean a baby animal, a calf. Any young animal can be called a gedi. And Rashi brings a proof. I'll go with the first half of this. It's important. A calf and a lamb are also included in the term gedi, a kid. For gedi, a kid is only an expression of a tender young animal. He brings a proof when we find several verses where it specifies. Like, for example, you know the story of Yehuda? Judah sent, when he met his daughter-in-law on the side of the road, and he said, I'll send you a baby goat as payment for your services. There the Torah specifies gedi izim, a goat kid. And the fact that it specifies a goat kid means that the word kid means any species of animals, doesn't mean specifically a goat. Okay. So the biblical commandment is the meat of a young animal, which means any meat, obviously, not young or old, but any meat of domesticated animals, according to some opinions. But in its mother's milk, meaning any milk that comes from any animal that the milk gives mother, as opposed to fowl birds that their mothers don't give milk, which is why chicken is not included in the biblical prohibition, although the rabbis decided to add it in later anyways as offense of the Torah. Exactly what he's talking about. Okay. Now, the next paragraph is the really important paragraph. Thank you, Prima. I agree. This is an interesting topic. The prohibition is written in 3 places in the Torah. One for the prohibition of eating meat with milk. One, the second time, for the prohibition of deriving any benefit from meat with milk. And one time the Torah mentioned this for the prohibition of cooking meat with milk, even if you're not eating it. Okay? This is derived from the Gemara in Chulin. And the point is we have 3 prohibitions. One time to tell you that you can't eat it. One time to tell you can't get benefit from it. You can't own a McDonald's. And one time that you can't cook it, even if you're cooking it for someone else, where you're not planning on eating it, etc. Okay? And I'll just point out that even though this is the first of the 3 times that we have this prohibition, so seemingly, why is Rashi telling me about the 3 times here when you don't have a question yet? When would you have a question? Why is the Torah repeating itself? By time number 2 and time number 3. The first time the Torah states it, it's not a repetition yet. And yet, in this verse, in this week's reading, what is the verse telling me? Not to eat meat and milk, but it uses the word cook. So how else would Rashi be able to explain to me that the meaning of the verse in this week's Torah reading is not to eat any mixture of meat and milk and not cooking, unless Rashi tells me you should know that the Torah is going to again repeat this exact same verse, and there will be referring to the prohibition of cooking, which means that here it's not referring to cooking, it's referring to eating. Was that clear? Clear? So basically, even though this is the first time we have the prohibition mentioned, this is the time that we find out that you're not allowed to eat any mixture of meat and milk. And we know that because the Torah will, as Rashi tells us, will repeat the exact same thing 3 times. Once for the prohibition of eating, once for the prohibition of benefit, and one for the prohibition of even cooking. So, here is what I want to discuss tonight, my friends. Why would the Torah tell us you can't eat it through the words cooking? That's a good question, huh? Meaning the Torah wanted to say you can't eat it, and you can't cook it, and you can't give it. Just say, over here you can say, don't eat meat and milk, and then there it would say don't cook meat and milk, and probably I'd figure out that you can't eat it and you can't cook it. Probably.
But why is the act of eating like a smash house burger with a faux cheese on there okay?
When you're eating it's a side question. When you're eating a fake cheeseburger, it's not cheese, it's soy or it's tofu or it's
But even
whatever.
the act of doing it.
So in Jewish law, when they began to become accustomed of eating almond milk, right, with meat, so the Shulchan Aruch writes clearly that you need to leave almonds in the milk, that people can see that this is not actual milk, it's almond milk. Today, many rabbis are of the opinion, I would agree with this, if you had a wedding and you had a kosher wedding and they serve milk with creamer with coffee at the end of the meat dinner, they don't need to put almonds or put a sign. Some do, because today it's such an accepted idea that there's almond milk and soy milk and non-dairy creamer. It's such an accepted staple that today no one thinks, you're serving milk at a kosher event. Everyone knows that it's a non-dairy creamer, yeah.
I just to make a comment, because I asked these questions. The majority of from birth people get the no cheese option. Because there's a spot, cheese is free. Like lettuce is $1.
Yeah.
The cheese comes with it.
Okay.
And there's an option, yes,
Take
you
it
have
out.
to pick yes cheese or no cheese, because most people.
Feel uncomfortable with it.
And my two friends, one grew up kosher, is not kosher now.
Interesting. Marsha is saying people feel uncomfortable with I feel uncomfortable with the cheeseburger, and that's what I said at the beginning of the class. I don't remember having a cheeseburger. Like I'm not remembering having like a burger with cheese. It's just
Well, they never had it back in.
yeah. I'm saying most restaurants. I don't know. I don't remember eating. Not that I was raised that you can't, but
Well, the thought to you is just.
yeah, artificial cheese is a new thing.
Not milks, it was either milk or no milks. After supper, you had tea.
Correct. I remember Tafooties when I was a kid. That's when Tafootie was like the new invention.
Yes.
Tafootie ice cream was like a big and growing up in South Florida, you couldn't get Chalavi soy milk. It didn't exist. The closest was in Miami, which is an hour drive away, and it was far. It wasn't like so. For ice cream was like a delicacy. So when Tafooties started being available, you could go to the Publix and buy Tafootie. It's like for us as kids, I remember that. It was like a tremendous excitement in the world. Today, non-dairy is a very common staple anywhere for many, health reasons and other kinds of allergies. Anyway, so the first question is, why can't the Torah just say, don't eat meat and milk? Now, obviously, that's what it means. When God told Moshe, don't cook it, what he really meant was, don't eat it. It's just interesting that the wording of the prohibition is cooking. And what's even more interesting, I'll just tell you one more thing very quickly, is that so what's the simple answer? What's the classic answer to this question? What's the classic answer to the question, why does the Torah say don't cook a kid in its mother's milk, but it really means don't eat? So if you look at the text that I showed you, verse 19 of chapter 23, there's two different things in the verse, right? In one verse, is two different mitzvot. What's the first part of the verse? Yeah, the first fruits that.
Careful, man.
What does it say? I'll share my screen for those that are watching.
You shall not cook a kid.
No, that's the second half of the verse. 1 second. What's the first half of the verse say?
To give the first fruit to the household.
The first, whoopsies, I just pressed the wrong button. 1 second. The first part of the verse 19 says, the choicest of the first fruits of your soil you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. Right? Now, when should I bring them? When should I bring these first fruits? Okay. Well, obviously, it doesn't say after you harvest them. It just says the choice of your first fruits you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. So the rabbis tell us that by putting the words cooking a kid in its mother's milk in this same verse is teaching us that you can't bring the first fruit until they're cooked. What are they cooked? Till they're ripened. There's a cooking process for a fruit on the tree. It's a natural, where God, so to say, is cooking it, right? See, like the baby's cooking in the mother's womb, right? The fruit is cooking. And when it's ripened, it's called mivushal. Mivushal meaning it's fully cooked or fully developed. So you shouldn't, the first fruits, they're little buds, the little, tiny little things, let me bring them. Only once they fully finished developing and they're fully ready for harvest, that's when you bring them. So that's the classic answer why it uses the word cooking instead of eating, because the first half of the verse is learning a law from the choice of words in the second half of the verse. Was that clear?
Yeah.
Good. That's a classic answer, but I will not leave you with such a classic technical answer. A Heidi should be healthy and gesund. And our little will be merit to be having a complete healing. Okay, so I'm going to give you a much better answer, obviously, why the focus is on cooking. But I'm going to ask you an even better question. Is there any other forbidden thing that we can't eat that we're also not allowed to cook?
It's,
Or
You're not allowed to cook insects?
You can't eat them.
You can't eat insects.
Because it doesn't, you can't cook them.
You're allowed to cook insects. You're even allowed to get benefit. You can sell insect juice. I'm not sure that there's a market for it, but I'm saying if you're really smart, you create a market for insect juice and you make like you could make a health craze out of, I don't know, cockroach. I don't know. I'll be really dramatic here. Scare all the way. You know what I'm saying? Let's say someone decided there was a market for selling, fresh cockroach juice. You'd be allowed to sell it, cook it and sell it.
In Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
they do that.
There you go. Southeast Asia. There you go.
They eat them.
Right? My point is, there's no prohibition from cooking insects. The problem is eating them whole. I'm saying it's what about cooking pork? Are you allowed to cook pork?
We're not allowed to.
We're not allowed to eat pork. Are we allowed to cook pork?
No. If we can't eat it, then we should be cooking.
That I hear the logic, but that's not what the Torah says.
You could cook it for someone else.
For sure, you can cook pork for someone else. You can be a Jew. A Jew can be a chef in a non-kosher restaurant. He just can't do the meat and the milk part. A Jew can grill bacon, but a Jew can't do a cheeseburger. Why? Because there's no prohibition in the Torah against cooking horse meat or cooking non-kosher. The only forbidden food that you're not allowed to cook is meat and meat. Yeah, meat and milk, or milk and meat.
What about the idea of a fence? If you're cooking pork, you might be tempted to eat it.
Robert's asking a question. Maybe the rabbi should have made a fence that you can't even cook pork because then you might come to eat it. They didn't.
same thing with shellfish, I assume.
What?
Same thing with shellfish as well.
Then what, you allowed to cook shellfish?
Can you cook shellfish?
Yeah. There's no prohibition against cooking shellfish. By the way, even chametz. Normally, by non-kosher foods, you're allowed to sell them. You're allowed to get benefit from them. You're allowed to give it to a non-Jew. I can cook non-kosher and give it to a non-Jew. Can give it to a Jew. Chametz, you're not allowed even to get benefit from it. But is there a sin in cooking it? Hypothetically, if a Jew works in a non-Jewish store, whatever, on Pesach with chametz that doesn't belong to him, yeah, I don't know that that's what a Jew should do on Pesach. But theoretically, by technical, theoretically and by law, is the act of cooking chametz forbidden? Assuming it's not yours, because if it's yours, you're not allowed to own it. So you can't own it. But if it's someone else's, you're allowed to. So the question is not why does the Torah use the word cooking? That's a question. A much bigger question is why would the Torah care if you cook meat and milk? Let's understand for a second. Every time the Torah says something is forbidden for you, it means that when you ingest it spiritually, the spiritual dynamics of pork, pig is an unhealthy spiritually. We're talking about spiritually now. It's the properties, the spiritual DNA of this pig is unhealthy for the spiritual makeup of the Jew. Our souls can't contain this kind of ingredients inside us. So Torah says, don't ingest it. Don't internalize it, because when you eat something, you become what you eat. And you will become like the food you're eating. So Torah says, this food is forbidden for you to eat, to internalize, to swallow, to digest, to make it part of your blood and your life force and your energy and your new vitality. But cooking it? Why should the Torah care? Why should God care if I cooked meat and milk? Any other forbidden food in the Torah, and there's quite a few of them, they're only forbidden to eat, to internalize, to digest it. It's a good question, huh? Why should cooking meat and milk be forbidden?
It's cooking the same.
And by the way, it's not because we're afraid that you might come to eat it, which was Robert's suggestion, which was a good suggestion. Because the rabbis didn't come and say, let's make a fence, and they weren't afraid of building fences. Let's make a fence that you shouldn't cook pork because you might come to eat it. They didn't say that. They didn't say that. Yeah. What's your question?
No. I said, is eating and digesting something like a metaphor for cooking?
No, cooking is outside of you. When you're cooking, you're not ingesting what you're cooking. It's totally you can cook food that you think is disgusting. You don't want to eat. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, it says do not cook a kid in its mother's milk.
Yeah.
So basically what it's saying is because, say, a calf, the mother, the cow, produced the milk. So they don't want the baby to be cooked in the mother's milk.
Okay, very good.
Which is why you are not allowed to cook it. And there, in a broader sense, you can't eat milk with meat, milk with meat. But technically, you're not allowed to cook the animal in.
You are. If you're saying, I think you're saying something excellent and beautiful and very much on target. I'll say what you're saying in 1 minute. You going to say something?
The Chinese are the same way with milk and meat.
But they don't mix meat and milk?
No.
I didn't know that. Interesting. Chinese don't. Okay.
Only the Chinese. I can't say that any of the other people from Southeast Asia.
I got it.
Chinese marinate their chicken.
Okay. So let me explain. And I want to give an introduction by saying that the Torah clearly says that this law has no explanation. So I can be very Jewish and explain what the Torah says can't be explained. Understand? So that's part of what us Jews do. The Torah says it's a chok that you can't understand, and okay, fine. No problem. Stay tuned and I'll explain it to you. So Esther is saying something very good, which is that the wording of the prohibition, as you suggest correctly, is the problem is not the meat and milk, it's the milk of the mother. Even though we're not actually cooking a baby in its mother's milk, it's milk, which milk is by definition motherhood, giving life. Milk is a food of growth, of sustenance, of a baby growing up. It's nourishing milk. And so to take what was once a living animal and see that piece of meat now cooking and bubbling inside the milk of its mother, and the milk is a certain moral coldness, a certain a lack of sensitivity. That the Torah is warning us: don't become insensitive. Don't reach a place where you can see the meat of what was once a living animal bubbling in the milk of what was once the life of a mother giving nourishment to her child, and to see the meat bubbling and cooking and stewing in the flavors, and add I need a little more paprika, a little more oregano. I don't know what else we put in there. Some cumin, okay, some black pepper. I don't know. I don't cook. I'm making it up, but whatever you put in, right? You taste it, and you lose all that sensitivity to the fact that, hey, this is the milk of a mother, and this is the flesh, the meat of a child, and you're cooking them together. So that act of cooking is already an act of moral insensitivity that the Torah is warning us to be very, very careful not to come to. And that's why it's only regarding this that the Torah says that the cooking is a prohibition, because the cooking in itself, even if you don't touch it, you don't eat it, you don't swallow it, just standing there and mixing it and seeing them cook together is already a lack of sensitivity that the Torah warns us not to become prey to. Okay? Makes sense. It's a good explanation. Esther likes it. That was basically what you said, correct? Yeah. Similar, what?
No, it's just the whole idea of, the cat.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Okay. Now the Rambam, we're all praying for you, Heidi. The Rambam, Maimonides, in Moreh Nevuchim, in the Guide to the Perplexed, where he deals with many of these kind of issues. So he actually writes that since it was the custom of the pagans, the idol worshippers, to eat milk and meat in their temples on their festivals, it was a big delicacy for them. And I heard that till today there's some, they eat meat and milk together, they cook it together. So that's how the idol worshippers back then used to do it. A special thing, meat in the milk. So therefore the Torah says, in the verse that talks about bringing the first fruit, remember there's two parts to one verse. Normally try and keep things organized. One verse for kosher, one verse for first fruits. Don't mix them. The Torah is telling you in the same verse that tells you to bring the first fruits to the temple, to the house of the Lord your God. Which one was the first fruits brought? On the holiday, on Shavuos. Now, when you bring the fruits on the holiday, don't bring it like an idol worshiper who comes with meat and milk cooking together, etc. But rather, make sure you don't act like them and that you don't even cook the meat in the milk, showing us how radically different the observance of our festivals is with the sensitivity that the non-Jews, the idol worshippers, don't have. Okay. A third answer, and then I'm going to get to the Chassidus, the real. The Rebbeinu Bechaya explains something very interesting, very, very long. I was reading it today. The Rebbeinu Bechaya explains that milk used to be the life of the animal. And then it went from being blood. Well, let me go back a second. Why is blood forbidden in the animal? We know that the Torah forbids us to eat blood. And the Torah warns us many, many times. Talking about repeating a prohibition, the Torah warns us again and again not to eat blood. The Torah says even chazak, be very strong, not like be extra careful not to eat the blood. Why? The Torah says, because blood is the soul of the person, of the animal. I mean, the soul of the life force of this animal is in the blood, in the person as well. Our soul is in our blood, and so too it is in an animal. And therefore, because the life force of the animal is in the blood, you cannot eat the blood of an animal. The milk was blood. The milk was the life force. Now, I don't know if this is scientifically exactly, this is the sequence how it takes place, but at least spiritually it is that this milk was the life force. It was the blood. It somehow got transformed into a life-nurturing liquid of milk to be given to the baby. And that's why you're allowed to eat it, because it's not in its blood format. But the moment you put it back into contact with the meat and the blood, what happens? It reverts back to its blood-like life status of the animal, which is forbidden because it's the nefesh, it's the life force of the animal. Again, I don't know if scientifically that is, but spiritually, the milk contains the life of the animal like blood does. And therefore, putting it with the meat kind of makes it revert back to its redness, to its bloodness, the way it was. And that's why you can't cook the meat and milk, because by cooking milk with meat, you make the milk go back to being like blood, which blood is forbidden to us. So I've just given you 3 very good, beautiful explanations. Each one, I think, is qualified on its own to be an explanation for why the Torah doesn't only tell us not to eat meat and milk, which is a separate conversation, but why the Torah specifically forbids us from cooking meat and milk, which, if you think about it, and none of you thought about it before, I was able to tell from your faces, is actually a very, very fascinatingly unique mitzvah in the entire Torah, where there is no other forbidden food that is forbidden for us to cook out of all the foods that are forbidden. And so here we already have 3 explanations why it's forbidden to cook. Number 1, because of the sensitivity to seeing the meat of a baby cooking in the life-giving milk of its mother. Number 2, because that's how idol worshippers would do it by their holidays. And number 3, because the milk contains life-giving nutrients just like blood does. And by cooking it in meat and making it red like the blood, you're making the milk go back to its original status of blood, which blood is forbidden to us. Okay. Now, my friends, I take you to the spiritual side of the universe, to the inner dimensions of the Torah, as revealed to us through, come on, Chassidus. There you go. You tell them, Michelle. Okay. First of all, we know that in Kabbalah, every single creation, every single being has its inner spiritual dimension, right? That's a basic beginning point of any Kabbalistic conversation. When you look at a piece of meat, you look at a cup of milk, besides for its physical properties, its whatever its chemical properties and how much it weighs and what it looks like, it has its spiritual inner dimension, inner truth. So when you talk about meat and milk, it's not only that they're different in size and in color, but in spirit, in their inner character, in what they represent, and what their spiritual source is. They come from a different spiritual source and have a different spiritual makeup or chemical character. What? Components, thank you. So what are the two different spiritual characters of meat and milk according to Kabbalah? So milk is chesed and meat is gevura. Now let me say that in English. Let me explain that. Yeah, I'll say that soon. I'll first explain in English what I just said, and I'll explain to you proofs, and I'll show you how you see this. We know that although there's many divine emotions in creation, the two primary emotions are kindness and discipline. In Hebrew, it's called chesed. Chesed is not just kindness, it's expansiveness, benevolence, nurturing, sharing, giving, loving. That's all chesed. The right side is the side of giving, the side of sharing. And the other yin and yang, the other side of the coin that you need to have in that balance is gevura, which means discipline or restraint, which is holding back, discretion, harshness, punishment, demanding, judgment. Those are all the sides of gevura, of discipline. So what is milk? Well, first of all, milk is all about giving life. Milk is the most selfless act of giving. When a mother is giving selfless love to her child, that's milk. And meat is what? A big, massive animal. Gevura, strength. You think about strength, you think about a big ox, right? A big fat cow. That's gevura. Milk is chesed. Kabbalistically, milk represents the flow of kindness, the flow of a mother giving, and meat represents the discipline, the harshness, the strength, the power, the might of the animal, the might of gevura. You see this in their colors. What is the color of chesed? Chesed is white, pure, kindness, giving, white. And gevura is a color of red, which is why white milk is white and chesed, gevura is red. In addition, when do we know, this is a fascinating thing, we also have a little hint of God in the way people behave. When do we normally eat dairy? In the morning. And when do people normally eat meat? At night. Doesn't mean people don't do both, but generally, morning in Kabbalah is a time of chesed. And the evening, when the sun's coming out and the sun is shining, the sun is chesed. And when there's nighttime and darkness, time of gevura. So that's why people don't even know how to explain it. But that's the reality, why naturally we feel more of a desire, more of a tendency to eat dairy, chesed in the morning, more of a tendency to eat gevura at the time of night, at the time of darkness. So now we know that you have meat and milk is not just a steak versus a yogurt or a glass of milk. One is a spiritual energy of benevolence, of giving, of sharing, of selfless love. And one is a spiritual character of restraint, of judgment, of discipline, of strength, of power. And we also know, according to Kabbalah, that each thing needs to remain in its place. The world was created in the very beginning of creation, the 6 days of creation, when God made the world. What did God make into the very fabric of creation? Separation. What did God do on the second day of creation? What was the creation of day number 2 of creation? Anyone else? God separated the waters above and the waters below, and God created a rakia, a firmament, to separate between the waters above and the waters below, because they couldn't be mixed. The waters below didn't like it too much, but that's part of the way God made the world. And what did God do on day number 3? Yeah, he separated the dry land and the ocean. That God made firm boundaries. And God told the water that wanted to be everywhere, God told the water, you can go up till here, and that's the shoreline. In fact, that's why the waves, just so you know, according to the Torah, why the waves roar to the shore and then they retreat. The waves really want to crash over. Water wants to go everywhere. In case you've never seen water, water doesn't like staying in one place. So, water's like ADHD a little bit. It has to go everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So water wants to run around. Doesn't want to stay in its seat. But guess what? Comes to the edge of the shore, wants to go take over the world. It comes till its border. And then here's the word of God at creation saying that the boundaries of the water are till here. Here's where land, and the water retreats. Again, I'm sure there's scientific explanations for gravity. I'm not sure what the science is why the water goes back. But according to Torah, the reason why the water goes back is because God says so. And every time the water tries to escape, it comes, roars, then it hears the word of God, and it retreats back into the ocean. So again, the division between the water and dry land. And then God created all different kinds of beasts and all different kinds of animals and everything, each in its own place, its own time. And that is part of what makes a human being unique. The uniqueness of a human being is in our ability to differentiate between one and another. Animals can't differentiate between a holy space and a non-holy space, between this and that, between the boundaries that are intrinsic. They don't know if they're in your territory and someone else's territory. They don't care. They don't know the difference. They're in your house or her house. They don't know the difference. Everything is the same to them. The idea of boundaries, the idea of respect, of not a wall that the animal can't get through, but the idea of an invisible boundary, of a differentiation. That's a human ability to be able to differentiate and to see what is here and what is there. What belongs on this side, what belongs on that side. And in the Torah, when God made these distinctions, these pluralities, these different categories, that is an integral part of God's design for existence. That's how God wants it to be. That's why Elohim is in plural, but that's how God wants it to be. Now, what happens when you cook?
They mix.
Yes, when you cook, what are you doing? You're destroying the boundaries. That's exactly why cooking is cooking, right? Why do you cook vegetables to make a soup? Just go eat all the vegetables. You could, a cake, anything, right? I mean, I don't know if eating flour would be such a good idea, but I'm saying theoretically, you could eat carrots and peas and squash, I don't know, but you cook it, and all of a sudden, what do you have? The delicious food that only became delicious because all of the different flavors of all the different ingredients all blended together into one new entity. Right? That's why it's cooked. That's why it's a soup. That's why it's a stew. That's why it's whatever it is that you made. That's what cooking does. Cooking is meant to make everything become one new entity, one new mixture. Once it's cooked together, you can't separate it. Right? You can't take my kids. Some of my kids have a thing with like the chicken soup. They don't like pieces in the chicken soup. They want it clean. That's the whole. Doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? Unless you put it in consomme. You know what I'm saying? If you do the real. Yeah, because my wife is too sweet. She gives it to the kids. She lets them make them with sugar, and she strains the soup to get rid of the little. But the point is, it doesn't really work that way. You don't really get the. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because it's one thing now. It's one thing. The flavors have combined into new entities. That's the whole idea of cooking. Cooking is to destroy the boundaries. But the carrot is no longer a carrot. It's not part of a soup. Right? Everything is like that. So we now become cooked together. And therefore, when the Sefer HaChinuch, which explains the reason for the mitzvahs, explains each of the mitzvahs, he explained this idea about several different mitzvot that we know that were commanded not to mix different species together. Right? You're talking about that? For example, give me some famous examples. You can't graft fruits, correct? Although a tangerine today, you can eat it because it was already done before, but a Jew is not allowed to graft different fruits together. That's correct. What else? You can't mix wool and linen together. That's called shatnez. Very good.
A donkey with a...
Correct. You can't crossbreed animals like a donkey and a mule. A mule is a crossbreed of an ox and a donkey. That's also forbidden. You can't crossbreed animals. A mule, which is an example of a crossbreeded animal. The Torah does not allow Jews to do that. Kilayim of vineyard with the wheat. You can't mix a vineyard and a wheat together. That's called kilayim. The point is there's many times in the Torah, several different examples, where the Torah forbids a Jew from mixing wheat and vines, or mixing wool and linen, or mixing an ox and a donkey, because you're taking different species that God created to be different species, and you're destroying that division, that distinction, that beauty that God gave the world by creating multiplicity and plurality and different colors and different styles. You're destroying it, which is what the world wants to do today. But let's not get distracted with what the world wants to do today, where we want to lose the beauty of the symphony. I mean, I give the example so many times. What makes a symphony beautiful? The combination of different people. One guy on the drums, one guy on the piano, one guy, not one guy, 3 guys on the piano, 10 guys on the trombone, 10 guys on the violin, right? Every single guy in the symphony play a trumpet, right? So imagine if you had 100 people playing trumpet. Would it be beautiful?
Not really.
Not really. We have a trumpet player sitting right here. The trumpet is only beautiful when you also have a violinist and a saxophone and a trombone, whatever, right? And together, the guitar is doing one sound and the violin is doing another sound, and then you hear the trumpet. Oh, now you can appreciate the notes that the trumpet played. But 100 trumpet players would not be especially exciting to listen to. That's the beauty of the world. So cooking, by definition, is to destroy the boundaries. And that's what the Sefer HaChinuch explains, a prohibition on the cooking of meat and milk, like anything, of separating, taking separate worlds, and you're making them now into one mixed whole. Okay. So, my friends, there's a very important message for us over here. We still have time for maybe even both new things I want to say. First of all, there's a very important message here that when we're educating, when we're raising children, we're dealing with someone with an issue, whatever it is, you need to know how to have the right balance of chesed, gvura, when to use this, when to use that. You have to keep them separate. However, I can ask you a question. You ready for it? So far what I said to now, it's clear? Clear, okay, good. It gets better, don't go away. Isn't the whole purpose of the Torah, the stated purpose of the Torah, to make peace in the world and to harmonize and to bring together everything, to reveal the oneness in the world? It says, the Torah was given, Lasos Shalom Ba'ol, to make peace in the world. So peace means that I bring everything together, to unify it, to integrate it, to bring all the different elements and all the different people and all the different flavors like meat and milk, and to bring them together. Wouldn't there be more harmony, more unity, more shalom, more peace in the world if I could combine the energy of the chesed of the milk and the gvura of the meat and bring them together to one dish that complemented and harmonized both the flavor of the meat and the milk? If you think about it, maybe we can make an argument. If the whole objective of Torah is to make peace in the universe, that's why Torah says it was given. Torah itself tells you that its purpose is to make peace and to bring harmony to the world. So then maybe cooking meat and milk would actually be an excellent way of achieving the objective of Torah, to bring together the beauty of milk, the beauty of this attribute of kindness, and the beauty of gvura, the discipline of meat, and the different colors of white and red, and bring them together. Now we would have true harmony.
Maybe it's that we all need to be different and then be able to be in harmony even though we're all different.
So, of course, you're 100% right. And in truth, that there's no contradiction, because I already said before, and this is the ultimate truth, that blurring borders is not peace. Obliterating our uniquenesses and our differences is a superficial peace. That's not real peace. That's uniformity. Uniformity is not what shalom means. Shalom means that we're different from each other, and because of our differences, we harmonize into beauty. The symphony is beautiful. Why is the symphony beautiful? Because everything is the same? Because everything is playing the same note? Or different instruments are even playing different notes?
They're all blended together.
They're blended together, but not only is it different instruments, it's different instruments playing different notes. Let's say we would have a harmony of the trumpet and the trombone and the violin, but they all were playing the same notes. How would it sound? Boring. Our musician says it would sound boring. He doesn't approve. Part of the symphony is that the violin and the trumpet are not playing the same thing. That's how it's a symphony.
But they play the same words.
They're playing to the same composer. They're playing to the same vision of a composer that sees how the different notes can combine into a finished product of beauty.
Correct.
But at the individual moment, if you were to listen to 1 second of the song, it would sound like if you came into here 1 second and someone would hear the trumpet and the violin both playing, so what the heck is this? He's playing on a high, I don't know, C, and he's on a low D, and I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if they go together, but I made it up. But you get what I'm trying to say.
It's Stravinsky.
So, yeah, exactly. Very good. That wouldn't make any sense. But in the big picture, that's what beauty is. And so true peace is a state in which diverse entities join forces towards a common goal, not where we're all doing the same thing. And therefore, the beauty of chesed and gvura is when chesed is chesed and gvura is gvura, and they're not combined into one whole. That's true. But on the deeper level, on a deep level, there is a oneness that exists in the chesed and in the gvura and in the violin and in the trumpet. And maybe cooking together would bring out the oneness that exists within both of them. And so which by the way, I'll say this, I'll say it. There's a medrash that says that when God, there's a medrash that says, I'll tell you the medrash. There's a medrash that says that when Moshe went to receive the Torah from God at Mount Sinai, the angels complained to God. They said to God, what is a human being doing amongst us? So God said he came to receive the Torah. The angels got very upset at God. Said, God, you're going to give this holy, beautiful Torah to a man, to an earthling born from a human mother? So God told Moshe, go fight with him. Go argue it out. And Moshe had a whole debate, and he said, look what's written in the Torah. Was it given to man or to angels? So one example, the famous Talmud, is the Ten Commandments. That's in the Talmud, where he said about, honor your father and mother. He asked the angels, do you have a father and mother? No. Did you leave Egypt? No. Do you work? You need Shabbos? That's the Talmud. But the Medrash goes through many more mitzvot that the angel, that Moshe said to them. One of them was the mitzvah of meat and milk. And Moshe says to them, the Torah says, don't cook meat and milk together, which means don't eat it. And you angels, when you went to go visit Abraham, you ate meat and milk together. If you remember, the angels went to go visit Avraham Avinu on the third day after his bris. If you remember in the Torah, it says he served them butter and he served them meat, and the tongue of the animal they ate. So you guys, you ate meat and milk, so the Torah can't be for you. That's what Moshe said to the angels, according to the Medrash, why they couldn't receive the Torah, because they ate meat and milk. Now, of course, his answers, they didn't really eat. They only pretended to eat. Angels don't eat. They only put it to their mouths, and then it magically disappeared. It was the milk before the meat. But then you can ask a simple question. Who gave the angels the meat and the milk? Abraham. Who's getting the Torah? The children of Abraham. So Moshe, the child of Abraham, is saying, you can't get the Torah because you ate meat and milk. They could have answered, hold on. Who gave us the meat and milk? It was your great-grandfather. Hold that thought for 1 second. So on a deeper level of truth, you would think that meat and milk together would bring out the ultimate harmony of Hashem, of the world. Therefore, my friend, let it be no surprise to you that according to some of the commentaries, Rabbi Bechaya writes clearly, when Mashiach comes, the prohibition will be gone and we will be allowed to cook meat and milk together. Because when Mashiach comes, the concealment of God will be gone. When Mashiach comes, there won't be any more concealment where we can't see the inner divinity of the universe. Now, when we live in exile, what happens? The world is concealing, right? So we can't see how the meat and milk can truly become one because they are each given its own box, so to say, its own shell, its own unique place where it belongs. When Mashiach comes, the ultimate oneness of God, and everything will be revealed. And then, indeed, when we cook meat and milk together, not only will we not be destroying the boundaries that God made, we'll be bringing out the ultimate peace and harmony between the different forces of the nature of the world. Understand? With what we just said, this idea instead of telling you in the beginning of the class, some commentators say when Mashiach comes, we'll be allowed to eat it, saying it this way. Now you can understand how it makes sense. Because the whole reason, according to Chassid, is why you can't cook meat and milk together is because they represent the opposing spiritual energies of Chesed and Gvura that need to remain distinct from each other. But when Mashiach comes, the need for that separation will no longer be there because the ultimate oneness of everything will be revealed. When you see a piece of wood, you won't see wood. You're going to see oneness of God. On that day, when Mashiach comes, God will be one, His name will be one, means that the whole world will see the oneness of God. And that's why when Avram saw the angels, he was able to give them meat and milk together. Why? Because at that moment of revealed godliness, there was no need for the separation. They're talking to angels. In the world of exile, in the world of concealment, you need to keep everything distinct. You got to keep things organized. But when you're Abraham and these giving angels food, angels don't need that separation. Abraham doesn't need that separation. It's in the world of oneness with God.
So all these separations go away, so you can put linen
Yeah.
together again?
By the way, I was not going to go there, but actually you're allowed to mix wool and linen. I may do a class on this for a mitzvah. We'll leave it.
Now or when Mashiach comes?
Yeah, now.
For a mitzvah.
You can mix wool and linen for a mitzvah. Tzitzis are a mixture of wool and
I should
linen.
say like
A talis, although the tzitzis that I'm wearing is all wool for that very reason, so I don't have to mix wool and linen. But if you're wearing a linen garment and you want to put strings of wool, which is the best kind of strings to put on, you can put wool tzitzis onto a linen garment, even though that is mixing wool and linen. Because for a mitzvah where you're revealing the oneness of God in the mitzvah, you're allowed to mix wool and linen. And so, although I wasn't going to bring it up, but actually it was very easy to explain, and that's a beautiful example. There's more, but you understand? You reveal the oneness of Hashem in the world, and that's why you're able to do it. You have time for one more thought?
Yes.
One more thought, then we'll take questions after. Since I'm on the roll, and I have one more beautiful idea to share with you. There's one more beautiful law about milk and meat that you all know, which is how long do you need to wait after eating one? Do you need to wait to eat the other?
6 hours, isn't it?
What? It depends. The Jewish answer is always it depends. You should just know a rule. Whenever I ask you a question, just say it depends, and you'll be right. Okay? How long do you need to wait after eating meat and milk? You need to wait. It depends. After eating meat, you need to wait 6 hours to eat milk. After eating milk, you need to wait. Depends who you ask. In Chabad, most Ashkenazi Jews, I think all Ashkenazi Jews have a custom is 1 hour, where you wait an hour, except for aged cheese, like a Swiss cheese, you need to wait 6 hours. But otherwise, even just a glass of milk, etc., which really, 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 you don't need to wait. You wash your mouth. Our custom, the accepted custom is you wait an hour. Okay. Why is it like that? Seemingly it should be the same 6 hours both ways, or an hour both ways. Think, my friends. Now, but I said that meat is gvura. Meat is discipline. And milk is kindness. Not only one over the other. Meat is heavy.
No, but
So the question is, what do you begin with? When you need to give discipline, when you anything in life,
begin and end with time.
you always begin with chesed. If you start with chesed, if you start with the milk, you can always then go and add in gvura right away. You don't need to wait. It's not so heavy. It's not so harsh. So you start with kindness, and then you can add in the gvura. Can't always be kind, by the way. You need to keep separate distinctions. Sometimes you need to eat meat. If you don't eat meat, you're missing protein in your life. But the point is, what do you start with? You start with chesed, and then you add to the gvura. Halacha tatal gavar, that the lower overpowers what you put on top. The bottom one brings heat up to the top. So the point is, if you start with the kindness, that's the way to start. Start with the milk, then you can always eat meat afterwards. But if you start with gvura, if you start by criticizing, it's very hard to give a compliment afterwards. You understand? You start with a compliment, you can still then give effective critique. You start with a negative. You start with the harsh punch, you did it wrong. It's very hard afterwards to say, by the way, you're actually a very nice guy. You know, it doesn't work. It's too late. Too late, right? Spiritually, if you eat meat, you gotta wait 6 hours. But if you start with a cup of kindness, start with a glass of milk, a cup of kindness, then you can still be much more effective and serve a beautiful steak afterwards and be very effective in the criticism and in the gvura that we all sometimes need to have. We all sometimes need to be disciplined and be tough. But if you start with kindness, a glass of milk and a glass of love, much more effective afterwards. Good night, my friends.
My first course of conversation will be ice cream. Forget the fish.
Forget the fish. Go straight to the ice cream.
Exactly.
You don't want to start with dessert because then we'll eat the main course. You gotta not too much chesed. So you have to. Okay. Anyway, Carmen, thank you, Jessica. I hope you enjoy watching all the way from Cartagena, Colombia. Toda, thank you. Who's watching us? Art, thank you. I'm glad that you're inspired. I was inspired too, to be honest. Stephanie, Toda, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. Prima, uniqueness is preserved 100%. Heidi, I hope you're well and healthy. Should be good news for you. B'ezrat Hashem. Stay well. Lori, Laila Tov, I hope you enjoyed. Next week, my friends, same time, same place. I may continue this theme with the mixing of the different species, and when it's allowed, I kind of touched on it a little bit. I didn't say I have an idea, like a seed for next week's class. It's just an idea. I don't know if we'll... Anyway, Laila Tov, my friends. Gail, hope you're well. I hope you're doing good. Hope you're healthy. Laila Tov, Toda. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the class. Harold, thank you. Lori, thank you. Thank you. How are you doing? Are you going to come tomorrow night? No? Don't know? Why? Come. Ask Rick. Okay, tell Rick what he wants. Good night, my friends. Laila Tov.